Joining us now on the Dan Patrick Show from NBCSN, Mike Florio. Mike, right off the bat, I want to get a topic with you. This is a little off base here, but any reaction on your show to Dunkin' Donuts switching to just Dunkin'? How'd that play out this morning?
Well, first let me say this. That was a fascinating baseball conversation. Why don't you guys continue that? I'll hang up and not listen.
Mike, you when was the last time you watched a baseball game from start to finish?
Never. It's been years. It's been so long I can't remember. I don't think does anybody ever watch a 9-inning game from start to finish? I mean, even if you're at the game, do you really watch the game if you're there? Do you really pay attention?
Non-playoffs?
I never have watched a 9-inning game start to finish.
Non-playoffs, I got to roll with you there. I got to roll with you. All right, poll question, Perloff, give it to Mike Florio.
Okay, what should the NFL do about the hit rule? Should they change the rule? Should they just quietly ease back on calling it as much? Or should they leave it as is?
Well, here's the problem. They can't change it because the only way you can change a rule is to have 24 owners in the confines of a meeting arranged by the NFL either vote to change it or not vote to change it. So they have to do what they did last month. Remember when they had all the issues with the lowering the helmet foul and they had a competition committee conference call and they announced after that we are not changing the rule. And then in the next sentence they said how they're changing the rule. So I think something like that's going to happen here where the rule doesn't change, but they're going to try to strike a better balance between protecting quarterbacks and getting away from this constant crush of criticism from coaches and players and media and fans. And I don't know how far they're going to push it the other way. You know what they're trying to do? They're trying to avoid the situation that they're going to have 4 times between Week 6 and Week 10 with the 49ers, where C.J. Beathard is starting a game in prime time instead of Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, Garoppolo injured himself, but this is why the NFL is trying to protect quarterbacks. They don't want another Aaron Rodgers broken collarbone if they can avoid it. They don't want quarterback injuries that can be avoided. But now, with all this criticism, I think they're going to find a way to maybe push it back a little bit. And here's what they did with the catch rule. They said, well, here are the catches that should have been catches, so let's change the rule to make sure these will be catches in the future. I think they're going to look at the hits that they think shouldn't have been roughing the passer and adjust the emphasis, the enforcement, the interpretation, so those penalties in the future wouldn't be roughing the passer.
Mike, I know Aaron Rodgers obviously sells more than a William Hayes, but how much concern should the league have about these defensive guys trying to do everything they can to land awkwardly so they don't land right on top of the quarterback, and then they're injuring themselves, and now they're out for the year going through surgery?
I think the league would just look at it, frankly, and shrug. I mean, look, plenty of times guys hit the ground, they step, they do something, and there's a risk that when you do it, you're going to injure yourself. What the league wants these guys to do when they're about to hit a quarterback is roll them to the ground. Hayes hit Derek Carr the way that, you typically see a guy who's going to lay on top of the quarterback hit him, and then almost like in mid-hit he realized, oh, wait, I'm going to get penalized if I land on him, so let me try to not land on him. I think, look, until they change the rule, coaches need to be teaching these guys, and they need to be running drills where, you've got that tackling dummy that's robotic and it rolls around and you can make it move. I think they need to get these guys to learn how to hit a quarterback kind of from the side and get them down that way instead of smushing them. That's what the NFL, and I think even if they change the rule, they're not going to change that aspect of the body weight because that's how you enhance the risk of injury. So, yeah, and between Derek Carr getting injured and William Hayes getting injured, the NFL is going to take a William Hayes getting injured 100 out of 100 times.
Hey, Mike, how does it work logistically if they do want to tell officials not to do it? Dan had hinted at maybe the officials in the league weren't totally on the same page with this rule, and the officials were calling it a little tighter than the league may have wanted. Does Al Riveron just sort of make a phone call and send out videos, then the officials act on it, or is there more to it?
Well, I mean, here's what happened. And Terry McCauley, who's now the Sunday Night Football rules analyst, he was still an NFL referee back in May when they got together, and they played the video, and they told them how they want these roughing the passer calls to be made. And he got the impression that the referees were going to have a lot of discretion to either call it or not call it. And, what happens is when there's a call like the one we saw last week, Clay Matthews hit on Kirk Cousins that allowed the Vikings to force overtime, I don't think the NFL really believed in that one as much as the NFL believed in the Clay Matthews foul this past week when he landed on top of Alex Smith. So, I think that they're not going to publicly criticize a referee for calling roughing the passer, but I think that they're going to defer to their discretion if they call it. And that's going to be the challenge, because in real time, without the benefit of replay, and you may have bodies in the way between the referee and the quarterback and the guy who's sitting the quarterback, how do you have a clear, bright line? This is roughing the passer, this isn't roughing the passer, and I think that's always going to be there.
Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk and NBC Sports joining us now. Not what you think is going to happen, but if you were Dirk Cutter, the coach of the Buccaneers, how would you handle the quarterback situation in the current time, like right now and going forward?
Well, without question, you have to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick this weekend against the Chicago Bears. Jameis Winston just returned yesterday from a 3-game suspension. And in those 3 games, and I still can't, like, my brain wants to reject this like a body rejecting a transplanted organ, that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the first player in NFL history to have 3 straight 400-yard passing games. Like, wait a minute, surely Dan Marino did this. Surely Dan Fouts did this. Surely Drew Brees has done this 5 times. But no, Ryan Fitzpatrick is the first guy to do it. You can't put him on the bench the way he's been playing. The real question comes after the Chicago game. They have a bye. Then they play the Falcons. How does Fitzpatrick play on Sunday? When do you flip from Fitzpatrick back to Winston? And that's going to be the challenge, because, if Fitzpatrick has a rough game like he had that rough first half on Monday night, when do you say it's Winston? It reminds me a lot of last year when the Vikings were holding Teddy Bridgewater over Case Keenum for the second half of the season. And it just felt like he was one mistake away from Bridgewater coming in. When do you do that? Because once you do it, then you're kind of stuck, right? You can't flip back. So I think it's going to be a real challenge for Cutter to figure out the right time to make a change.
One of the stories I don't think is getting enough coverage is Earl Thomas, the star safety for the Seattle Seahawks. He's basically wagging the dog out there saying, hey, I know you need me to win. You know you need me to win. You decided you weren't going to pay me, so I won't show up much at practice, or I'll practice when I want to. But what are you going to do, bench me because you need me on Sunday? Do you think this could catch on with the high-end players in the NFL?
Well, I mean, there is a risk that if you're too disruptive, you get yourself fined for conduct detrimental to the team. They can eventually suspend you up to 4 games. And that it's the Terrell Owens situation from 2005, where he decided that he wanted a new contract or he wanted to be traded. The Eagles said, we're not doing either. So he was going to be as disruptive as he needed to be to convince the team to just rip the Band-Aid off and get rid of him. And I think Earl Thomas is trying to do that. But the problem for him is if he pushes it too far, he's going to start losing money. And that's the balance he has to strike. And, from the Seahawks perspective, they have to ask themselves, how aggressively do we want to push this? Because, we got enough issues right now. We don't need these distractions on top of it. So, I think he'd love to get traded to a team that will sign him to a new contract, give him the security he thinks he deserves. But let's remember, this is a safety market that the money isn't falling from the sky like it is for pass rushers and quarterbacks. So I don't know what he can really get at his age. And when you look at a team that's going to have to give up a fairly high draft pick to get him, that's just less money they'd be willing to pay him. So he may have to play out this season to become a free agent and see what's out there on the market next March.
Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell still holding out. Reported this weekend that Steelers are listening to trade offers. Anything happening there, Mike? Is anyone calling the Steelers with anything real?
Well, Manish Mehta of the Daily News reported that the Jets have talked to the Steelers about it. But this is a complicated transaction because, first, you have to be willing to do a partial year rental deal with Le'Veon Bell because you can't sign him to a long-term contract. You can't sign him to anything other than a one-year deal until after the season ends. So you have to get the Steelers to give him up. So what do the Steelers want for him? Second-round pick? Okay, we're going to give up the second-round pick. Now we have to convince Le'Veon Bell to show up and sign a contract so he can be traded in the first place because until he shows up and signs, there's nothing to trade. So what does Le'Veon Bell want? Well, he's not playing for $855,000 a week. He wants more than that in order to assume the physical risk that he's going to blow his opportunity to get a big contract on the open market. So what does it take? Does it take $1.2 million a week? Does it take $1.3 million a week? Who knows? But those are things that if you're the Jets, for example, you got to figure out what do the Steelers want, what does Bell want, and are we willing to do all of that for a guy that we have no guarantee we're going to keep beyond the end of the regular season? I think it's too much to expect one team to make all those sacrifices. And the real question becomes, if the Steelers are now willing to consider trading him when they weren't 2 weeks ago, if they can't trade him, do they rescind the franchise tag before he shows up and signs it? And I think that they have to seriously consider doing that because talk about distractions. If he comes in and he doesn't want to play because his hamstring's sore, because he has a headache, and they think he may be embellishing like James Harrison suggests he should, then you just don't want that as you're trying to make a run to the postseason.
All right, Florio, since Dan's out, I want to hip you to something that happens in our studio every day. We watch your show every morning, and whenever you have Chris Sims in as your co-host, every day Dan walks by the TV screen and goes, top button's buttoned. And he has some type of transfixion or whatever word you want to use with Chris Sims having his top button on whatever shirt he's wearing buttoned. Have you ever wanted to, during one of those arguments you and Sims have when you're jabbing back and forth, want to just grab him by that little smarmy top button and unbutton it? And have you thought about it?
Oh, I've thought about it many times, and you've given me an inspiration because during football seasons we're together on Monday, so I'm going to have to do something there and force him to unbutton that button. I mean, do you have some kind of tattoo there? What are you hiding under that button? And his position is he's done it since he was 8 years old, and he's not changing it now. So that's his thing. And yeah, I've got used to it. I mean, because I've been dealing with it for so long now, but. Yeah, I every once in a while I see that thing and it's like, my God, Mike, what is your deal? But that's his trademark, and yeah, hey, better him than me. Although I think once or twice I've buttoned my top button just to mock him, but I don't know, I can't do it for more than 5 seconds.
So, Mike, I know you don't want to talk baseball, but Seton and I during the break were having a heated Jimmy Butler debate. I assume you want to get in on that. Is he a number one?
I don't even know who Jimmy Butler is.
You don't know? Oh.
I don't know who Jimmy Butler is.
Long snapper for the Patriots.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler.
By the way, Seton is top.
I think he's a guy that lived down the street from me when I was growing up. Jimmy Butler. Hey, Jimmy, how you been? Yeah. I mean, listen, when you're all in on one sport, I don't have the time or the desire. I'll pay attention to hockey in the playoffs. But other than that, it's very, very casual. I mean, I was a big Pirates fan when I was a kid. I couldn't tell you the name of one player. Andrew McCutchen is the only player I could tell you from the Pirates.
Seton is top button right now, by the way.
After that talk, I was like, you know what? I could pull off smarmy top button, and I think I'm going to give it a shot for the next 20 minutes, see how it goes.
I never thought of it as smarmy top button. I like the name smarmy top button. I think if I use that enough, it'll shame him into opening it up.
Yeah, I sense a sponsorship for your show. Mike, thanks a lot for joining us. Mike Florio, NBCSN.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.